Okay, just want to start this off by showing the curse of the Billy Goat again. I had talked about the Cubs winning the World Series if the Yankees lose the other night, but as I'm reading through here, there's another source that says that the Cubs are just going to never make the World Series. So the family says that he sent a note, you are going to lose this World Series and you're never going to win another World Series again. Because you insulted my goat. But then some of the other sources say that his ban was on the Cubs appearing in the World Series, and then some say that it was never to be played at Wrigley Field. So, interesting to me. I don't know which one it really is for sure, So, it could technically be that the Cubs were never going to make the World Series again, so maybe they're only going to make the World Series and then lose. Now, I barely really looked into any of these other teams, but, and I know the Royals lost tonight, but in 1985, the Royals won the World Series on the day that Back to the Future ends, October 27th. So the train destroyed the DeLorean time machine, and then Doc Brown came back in the train that he made a time machine out of. And then later that night, would have been when the Royals won this World Series against the Cardinals. Interesting, the Royals, regular season, they had 91 wins and 71 losses. This is also the only World Series that the Kansas City Royals have ever won, and it's in the year 85, like I said. This year was the first time since 1985 that they won their division. And as for the Royals losing tonight in this World Series or this playoffs, they were down 3-1 and the series before, I believe it was, and then they were down 3-1 in the World Series and they came back and won it. So, just something interesting to think about. Like I said, didn't really look that much into it, and I'm only basing this off of what the curse doesn't really specify if it's just the World Series making it or winning it. But anyway, interesting in this World Series here. Like I said, Kansas City Royals had 91 wins, and St. Louis Cardinals had 101 wins. Both of these numbers have been super significant as of late. Just want to point out, too, I've been seeing 91 a whole bunch of times here, but today we had the Spencer Stone guy who got stabbed in Sacramento. So, literally, what are the odds of this? They were in this train attack, right? And they supposedly stopped it, and they were heroes. And, I mean, come on, this is ridiculous. So this guy's in the news again. Spencer Stone is in the news for getting stabbed again. And then the other guy was literally from Roseburg, Oregon, where the other shooting just happened. And I just got home not that long ago, and I just looked up a few things about this. And so this guy got stabbed in Sacramento, and the other one was in Roseburg, Oregon. And look at the distance away. Sacramento to Roseburg, Oregon. 404 miles. Pope Francis in Jewish gematria adds up to 404. Even Prince Charles adds up to 404. I've made a ton of videos about how Queen Elizabeth is going to die, and Prince Charles III would be the next king or whatever. Pope Francis even arrived in the United States on 9/22 at 4:04 p.m. It all ties into Philadelphia with the train wreck, but Philadelphia is also in the Book of Revelation. The Book of Revelation is 404 verses, and the King James Bible came out 404 years ago. Even look at how long it says it'll take right now. 6 hours and 6 minutes. Revelation is the 66th book in the Bible. Even look at the alternate routes here. 7 hours and 17 minutes, kind of like the Hajj Stampede Day. Tons of other things with that as well. Even 8 hours, 9 minutes, like 89. Queen Elizabeth is 89 years old this year. Anyway, I just typed in Gematria. I typed in Spencer Stone and Alec Scarlatos or whatever, just to see what it would come up with, because they were both in the news recently, whatever. And it adds up to 91. I've been seeing this number a whole bunch. Talked about the Yankees or whatever, and CC Sabathia decided he needed to go to rehab right before the playoffs started, for whatever the reason. but his real name is Karsten Charles Sabathia Jr., 91. I talked about Nebraska displayed fighting Illini, they're 91. Chicago Cubs even adds up to 91. Also, I guess I never threw this in here, the Kansas City Royals are in the American League Central. American League Central is 188. The train number in the Philadelphia train wreck was 188. And I'll come back to the 91s in a second here, but this train wreck happened on August 21st. I had talked about how it tied into Princess Margaret, the Queen's sister, who would have been 85 years old this year. But also, August 21st, let's just look at August 21st here. It's the 233rd day, and there's 132 remaining. So interesting, there's this Thal's train attack, and let's check out May 12th when the Philadelphia train wreck happened. It's the mirror day, 132 days, second day of the year with 233 left. These 2 days are also 101 days apart. Now remember, the Oregon shooting was on 10-1, kind of like 101. Let's pull it up here. Happened on 10-1, which is like 101. The shooter was 26 years old. 101 is the 26th prime number even. Also, October 1st is literally, there's 91 days left until the end of the year. It's also Jimmy Carter's 91st birthday. And interesting, I talked about that in the Nebraska football game. They foreshadowed Bush and Carter. And George Bush is also 91 years old this year, 111 days before Jimmy Carter turned 91. Interesting, too, I talked about how all this Nebraska coding started when they killed off the Herbie actor, the actor from Herbie, Dean Jones, who also died on 9/1 of 2015. They've talked about how it ties into Revelation. Well, the word Revelation is literally 121 and 49. But if you type out the word 91, it's the same thing as Revelation. And if you go back and watch my previous videos, I just don't have enough time to explain it, but I've talked about the number 41 over and over and over. 41, 14. It seems like it's just been super coded. It all ties into Skull and Bones. Skull and Bones adds up to 41 even. The black shirts at Nebraska Husker fans is 41. Tons of 41. But a date that is sort of like 4/1 is April 1st, which just so happens to be the 91st day of the year. Also, the day before the Roseburg shooting, there was this Harrisburg high school shooting in Sioux Falls, or Harrisburg, South Dakota. I mentioned that it was in Lincoln County. The counties seem to really stick out to me. It even said it happened at approximately 10:01, which is the 601st minute of the day, like the backwards 106. But anyway, in Vermont, there was also a train wreck. In Vermont, they have Interstate 91 that literally goes clear across the state from north to south. And in Vermont, it goes 177 miles. 177th day is, or 177th day is 6/26. The day that gay marriage was legalized. A whole bunch of stuff I've talked about with that day. All the stuff surrounding Queen Elizabeth and the number 26. She became queen on 2/6, coronated on 6/2, 62 years ago. Tons of stuff with that, but the mirror day of 6/26 is literally 7/7. So 7/7 is the 188th day with 177 left, and 6/26 is the 177th day with 188 left. And that all ties in to the Philadelphia train wreck, because that was the number of the train. And I'm sorry, the reason I mention that is because I talked about this guy right here who got shot. He's literally my aunt's brother. I don't know this guy at all, but he's my aunt's brother. And their mom literally lives in Vermont. And I never mentioned that in the video because I wrote it down and I didn't think that it was that significant. But she lives in Burlington, Vermont, which adds up to 239. So kind of wish I would have mentioned that before, but it was kind of irrelevant to what I was talking about. Anyway, this train in Vermont, it was going from St. Albans to Washington, D.C., but I noticed one thing that stuck out. It's in Franklin County, Vermont, is where St. Albans is. And also in the Roanoke shooting was in Franklin County. This shooting was in Lincoln County. So just want to point it out here, Franklin County. I remember I talked about Franklin Bridge. There's the Benjamin Franklin Bridge in Philadelphia. They even talked about the NASCAR wreck in Pennsylvania right at the bottom of the screen here during this shooting. And then now this train wreck started in Franklin County. It actually, Northfield, where it wrecked, I believe is Washington County. Washington County. And I mentioned this place multiple times. There's a nuclear power plant here in Nebraska, and it's in Washington County as well. And I mentioned it because of a possible blackout was more what I was leaning towards, maybe a blackout during a Nebraska football game or something. And I'm thinking all of the Nebraska football coding literally is just coded to Abraham Lincoln, which is tied to Chicago. Also, so this Roseburg shooting then was in Douglas County. I don't know, they're really standing out to me. They got Franklin, Lincoln, Washington, and now Douglas. And when I thought of Douglas, I thought of literally Frederick Douglass in the Civil War, but it's actually named after Stephen A. Douglas, which is even more significant because he's literally known for his debates against Abraham Lincoln in the year 1858. 58 we've seen coded tons of times. I've talked about it with Back to the Future. So interesting, he ran against Abraham Lincoln in the 1860 election. It says he got 4th place out of these 4 guys here. But what's interesting about this guy is that he died literally on June 3rd, 1861. So Abraham Lincoln became the president on 3/4/1861, and this guy died 6/3/1861, 91 days afterward. And I forgot to mention the train wreck, the marine thing, and the French train thing. Let's see here, 2015, to the Roseburg, Oregon shooting was literally a span of 41 days. So, like I said, 41 and 91 go hand in hand. Jimmy Carter's real name is James Carter Jr. James Carter Jr. is 141, the mirrors of 41. And sorry for being so unorganized here. I just keep remembering stuff that I forgot to talk about. Also, like I said, May 12th is the 132nd day. The French train shooting or attack happened on the mirror day of it. But the word 132, 100, can't even spell it, 32, is literally 266. We talked about Pope Francis is the 266th Pope. 923 was the 266th day of the year, so significant number. Also, in Pythagorean gematria, it's 104, kind of like, can't remember if it was Harper Mercer or the shooter at Oregon was Chris Mercer Harper, or it might have been the other way around. His name adds up to 104 even. And the 104 literally reminds me of Back to the Future, right when the clock tower turns to 104. 10-4, there's literally 88 days left until the end of the year even. Also, when Marty goes to 2015, the guy says something about lightning struck the tower 60 years ago. And I've talked about tons of other 60s, but Marty gets the sports almanac from the store called Blast from the Past, which adds up to 60. Also, just kind of interesting, October 1st adds up to 60. And that, the day of the Oregon shooting. Also, the reason for the Vermont train wreck was rocks fell onto the track, supposedly. And they said it was a freak of nature. Freak of nature is 60. And I apologize, I'm all over the place, but this city where the Vermont train began, it's literally known as the northernmost engagement of the Civil War. And it was called the St. Albans Raid, and they robbed like 3 banks, which was interesting because one of the main things in this Harrisburg, South Dakota town, one of their main things was a shooting that happened at 101 Railroad Avenue, the bank. Like I said, 101, the 26th prime. The shooter here was 26 years old. The college even adds up to 101. It happened on 10-1. But See you in part 2. Gotta make it a part 2. Run out of time.